Today I'm going to show you how to get started on your self-portrait collage. So I have Photoshop opened. You'll notice mine is not full screen. I find it easier to work with it if I can get to my folder with all my images in it. So I have made mine so it's not full screen. I'm going to open up a new document, so I'll go File, New. Yours might look a little bit different than this, but there should be a section where you can put the name. So I'm going to put self-portrait. And then I might put O Baggy because that's me. And then I want to make it either 8 inches by 10 inches or 8 inches by 8 inches. Now you'll want to check and make sure it's in inches. If you choose pixels, you will have 8 pixels by 8 pixels, so you can have like 8 squares of color in both directions, and that's it. So make sure it's in inches. For resolution, if it's going to be used on the web or online, 72 resolution is fine. If you were going to be printing this and making a nice image out of it, you'd want to change this to 300. That's kind of your standard high quality print. So I'm going to hit OK, and it's going to give me a new screen. Now, when this comes up, if it comes up and it looks really small or it looks really big, you can zoom in and zoom out. Over here you can find the minimize, so that will zoom out. Or you can click the positive and zoom in. There's also some cheats on your keyboard. You can do Control plus sign or Control minus sign, and that will change the size of your canvas. If you do start a new document and find that these measurements up here are like you only see the 0 and that's it, that means you probably chose pixels. You can go to Image, Canvas Size, and change it to the size you want, 8 inches by 8 inches. Okay, I'm going to get started. So I'm going to drag my first image in. So I'm going to go to my folder and I'm going to drag my first image in. Now when it comes in, it's kind of editable. You've got this like X in it. There's a border with these squares. You can grab the square and shrink it down. You can go wider, smaller, thicker, thinner. But if you hold Shift, it will keep it the same proportions. Okay. So I'm going to put this about where I want it. Probably about there, and I'm going to hit enter. If you don't hit enter, Photoshop's not going to let you do anything because it still thinks you're working with that image. So I hit enter, it gets it set. You'll notice sometimes when you do that it will look really pixelated until you hit enter. So don't worry about that until you hit enter. At that point, if it looks pixelated, you're just working with too small of an image. Okay, now over here I have this little icon. This means that this layer is a smart object. Really, that means you can't do a lot of editing because the object stays together. So you can't erase parts, you can't paint on it. So I'm going to go and get rid of that smart object. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click. So you go to the layer, right click, not on the image itself, but the layer, and you're going to go to this weird word, Rasterize. This rasterizing the layer makes it so this is now very editable. If you try and do anything and you get a message that says this is not editable, you need to rasterize your layer. Okay, so that's good. I'm going to leave that how it is. I'm going to go bring in another image. Again, this one's still editable. I want to pull it down. I only want the feather. I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to rasterize the layer. Now, let's say I've hit enter, but now I want to move the feather. I still have the magnifying tool on, so if I use it, it's not going to allow me to move stuff around. To do that, I have to come up here to the Move tool. Now the Move tool sometimes has an arrow. It sometimes has like an X with arrows on either side. I think yours will have just the vertical and horizontal line with arrows. So I'm going to click that. That will allow me to move things. Okay. So I am going to keep my feather here, but I don't want it to cover up my birds. So I'm going to grab my eraser tool. Yours again might look a little different. A cheat to get to it is an E. And then to change the size, if you want to change the size of your eraser, you have 2 options. Up here you can change the size by sliding it, or the hardness, so if you want soft edges or hard edges. You can also, on your keyboard, there are brackets. It's not the parentheses, but it's the brackets. So right next to the P on your keyboard, one bracket will go bigger, one bracket will go smaller, and you can work with that. So I'm going to erase some of this image, probably up to the bird's wall that they are sitting on. And then I could, if I wanted to, extend this green So I'm going to grab a paintbrush. You'll come over here, find the one that looks like a paintbrush. Now, some of these tools have extra tools hidden in them. So if you can't find the paintbrush, try right-clicking on a couple things, and then you might find it as an option. So I've got my paintbrush. I want to choose my color, so I'm going to double-click over here on my little color swatch, and you'll notice you get an eyedropper tool. You can pick a color from any part of the image, and that will give you choices. Or you can, of course, slide things over here and work that way. Okay, so I've got that. I have my brush. Again, I can use brackets to go bigger or smaller. And I just want to fill in. You can see this one has a soft edge, so it kind of fades. I could get rid of that if I wanted to, but I do want to fill in this corner because I don't want any of the white of the canvas showing. Okay, now I'm going to bring in another image. I'm going to bring in a paintbrush. Now this one, I've noted that this one's copyrighted. So I need to do some stuff to this to change it. I can't just delete the background and call it good. I'm going to show you how to delete the background. So first I have to hit enter. I have to rasterize the layer. Then I've got this magic wand over here. Your magic wand might be hidden behind the quick selection tool. Both of them allow you to select a large area without having to hand draw edges. So right click on it if you can't find the magic wand, and it will be in there. If your background's just white, the magic wand will be your best friend because you just click. It will highlight everything that is white that's touching that area. Hit delete or backspace, and then your background's gone. Now, Photoshop is not going to let you do other stuff until you deselect this area. Just clicking somewhere else will highlight a new area since you still have that magic wand out. But if you're ready to go to something else, you're going to come up here to select and hit deselect. So anytime Photoshop's not letting you do something, try to hit deselect because sometimes you accidentally select something. You can also do Control D. Now I want to move the paintbrush, so I'm going to grab the move tool or hit V, and I'm going to drag this to where I want it to be. Now if I want this bigger, I want it a little bigger. I want to edit it, and I've already placed it on my thing. So I need to make this what is called as free transform, and that will give me those little boxes that'll let me stretch it out. There's two ways to get to it. You can go edit, go down about halfway to free transform, and that will give me those little squares, and I can once again hold shift to keep it proportional, and then I'm going to slide it over to where I want. And actually I only want to use a portion of it because this one's a copyrighted image, so I don't want to use too much of it. And then I'm going to hit enter. The other way to get to it, I can do Control T, and that will do the free transform for whatever layer I'm selected. Okay, and then of course hit enter to finish. Now I also like French fries. I'm going to pull in some French fries. Hit enter. To delete the background, I can do the magic wand, or for this one I might show you the quick selection tool. So this one, you can see it kind of like clumps things together. Sometimes if it gets more than what you want, you can come get the minus one and then choose, like I don't want it to delete that French fry, and then it works the same way. Now, I got this message. It's not directly editable, so that means I forgot to do something. I forgot to rasterize my layer. So I'm going to come over here, rasterize my layer, and give it another go. And then I can deselect. I'm going to do Control D. And then I'm going to get my move tool so I can put these French fries where I want them. I want them right by my paintbrush. Okay. Now, let's bring in another image. I have, here's one of me and my son. I'm going to move that up to the corner. Now, if I wanted this to be behind stuff, I could move my layers around. So like French fries could go behind things. But of course I want those in front, so I'm going to leave them. But now this bird, I want this bird's head, but I want this to be behind it. The only way I can do that, if I go back to my sparrow layer, I'm going to get the eraser. I'm going to make it a little smaller. I'm going to erase, actually not the sparrow layer, sorry. I want to be in this layer of the photograph of me and my son. I rasterized the layer, and I'm going to actually hand erase some of that picture. And I'm going to do it in small marks so I can go back in my history and change it if I need to. So like that, I went too far. So I'm just going to kind of bring that back in. Now this up here, this is my history. History is basically the glorified edit undo, because I can go back to any point. Well, not any point, but I can go back a decent bit to like undo what I've done. And I'll know exactly where I am, and I can redo it if I don't change anything. So this is really nice. If you don't have your history out, this is something I would always have out. Same with your layers. Both can be found in Window, and you'll notice you'll see a check by history and a check by layers. That's kind of your standard setup. Everything else over there you don't really need, but you gotta have history, gotta have layers. So I'm gonna keep erasing this bird. I would probably take a little more time and make it a little neater. But for the sake of this demo, I'm not going to. Okay, I'm going to bring in 2 more things. I'm going to bring in a watercolor palette. I'm going to put it right there, hit enter. I want it behind the French fries and behind my image, so I'm going to drag that layer. I'm going to rasterize it so I can edit it. So I'm also going to erase the bird head where the bird head would be, so that it will go behind. I'm going to erase this extra line over here. I don't want that. And I'm probably going to call that good. And then I could probably erase some of that if it went over the feather. I'm also going to bring in my favorite type of flower. This layer I'm going to put in front. Got to hit enter before it'll let me change stuff. Rasterize the layer. I'm going to use my magic wand for this one. Grab background, delete it, and then deselect using Control D. Now this one has a black outline around it. I'm still going to grab my eraser. I'm going to come in, I'm going to erase that black line. Now because I'm on the flower layer, I'm only erasing things that are on the flower layer. So you don't have to worry about erasing stuff that's behind your image if you're in the correct layer. Okay, so then I'm going to deselect that, grab my move tool up in the corner, and move my flower to where I want it. Now I don't like this flat line at the bottom, so I want to angle it. So I'm going to free transform. So I'm going to go edit, free transform. And this will also allow me to turn an object so that I can put it wherever I want it. Okay, and I'm going to put it right there, hit enter. I have 7 images, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Your minimum is 7 images, so make sure that you are getting all 7. 7 to 10 is what I'm looking for.